released April 14, 2016 for the PC after a successful Kickstarter campaign by Cameroon developers Cairo Games. Aurion Legacy of the Kori-Odan is a title I learned about from my second African esports campaign with Empire Arcadia last year. EMP's CEO also included it in a top 5 video games by black developers for Black History Month list, where it received the #1 spot. Thanks to Empire Arcadia for the review code. It's appreciated. Aurion is another indie game that caught my attention for 2 reasons. First, I always thought this was one beautiful game, and second, it's basically made in Africa by Africans. I didn't know much about it. What genre it was, the story, the inspiration, nothing. I just knew it looked great and black people made it. That was enough to spark my interest. Aurion is a 2.5D action RPG that incorporates heavy strategic gameplay with fighting game mechanics and a deep story. When I first started it up, I was disappointed. It just didn't feel or look right. The movement was weird to me, kinda like what I said about Nanui. You were on a 2.5D plane, but when moving in said 2.5D space, it just felt odd to see the character running sideways. Let me be a bit more clear on this, as I'm certain some do not get what I'm saying when I said this in my Nanui review. Look at this game here. It's called Time Out. It is also a 2.5D game, but when your character moves around within the space, you can see him turn his back and walk into the background. In Nanui and Aurion, again, they're walking and running sideways. I understand that this is acceptable by most, but I'll always find it slightly jarring, for lack of a better word. Anyway, this is why I believe professional reviewers should play through a game before judging it. Even if you're unable to complete it with a fine-tooth comb, don't just play 2 hours of it, then go read the description in the press kit and act like you did a good job. And this is a part of the reason I'm here to give this game, after 4 years, the review I believe it deserves. The story of Aurion is based on African mythology and follows wife and husband duo Enzo and Erin Kori-Odan. On the day that Enzo was to be crowned king and wed Erin, his brother-in-law staged a coup. Enzo, being the young and inexperienced prince he is, fought hard alongside his wife to stop said coup, but failed and were exiled from their own kingdom. Now let me pause for a second on the story and say this. Although the truth is, a game is no good without proper gameplay mechanics, and gameplay is paramount, the story presented here in Aurion is what stood out over all else, and is what I'm focusing on first. I will say this without apology. Aurion Legacy of the Kori-Odan is the deepest, most story-driven game I have ever played. This is a matter of resonance. By the sound of my voice alone, one can tell I've been in this a while, and in all my years of doing this, a game's story has never hit me as hard as this one. The messages here are so profound. Now, at the beginning of most of my reviews, I put up a disclaimer, potential spoilers inbound. That being said, I will still make an attempt to not spoil too much here. But this game addressed some serious points, from an existential point of view to basic everyday life we all experience. It directly and indirectly spoke on things like the importance of teamwork, the importance of a real and true queen, a queen who does her best to stand beside, not behind her king, as strong and powerful as he stands for her and himself. A queen who selflessly stands up when her king has fallen and aids him in battle, regardless the circumstances. A king not being ready to assume his responsibilities. Betrayal, connecting with your lineage, your ancestors, the importance of family, introspection, women empathizing with other women without judgment. Aurion teaches you that the journey to greatness will be a hard one, but will also make you stronger with each step. It hits home on real-world issues such as spousal abuse, rape, blood oaths, slavery, politics, not trusting someone simply because they look like you, labor disputes, false prophets, religious scammers, concubines, and even suicide. Even the banter between the couple was engaging. The things they said to each other, from words of encouragement to petty squabbles involving jealousy. Reminds me of a couple I know, actually. There's so much more I could say about this story, but based on the experience I had with this game, I really don't want to ruin it for others. Aurion has no voice acting. I see where voice acting could have been a great addition, but when I think about it, Unless the devs were able to get a sizable budget that would guarantee AAA style voice acting, it could have compromised the story for me. After playing Aurion, I understand why persons hold firm to the belief that books are better than movies. I never truly accepted that till I played this. Although this game is text heavy and I'm not the biggest fan of reading, I was so captivated by this moving story based on what my imagination came up with for vocal moods and tones. Now, while there were a few points, especially in the beginning, where I'll have to say some of the dialogue was questionable and even amateurish and juvenile, with even the occasional typos, I'm still going to give it up for the story. This was brilliant. The visuals, beautiful in a dated and indie kind of way. I love the hand-drawn comic book style visuals, with vibrant colors, detailed character designs and animations. The only other thing I could have asked for would be more cinematics. As you make your way through the fantasy world of Aurion, your eyes will be treated with a feast at every turn. Each area looks unique with its own personality, charm and appeal. My only peeve would be similar to what I said about Nanui. Some of the specials were just way too special. Some attacks would completely cover the screen. The music was also a delight. It seems the devs went above and beyond the call to ensure a quality score that held Aurion's authentic African roots together. The sound effects were also well balanced and believable with their cartoon anime style. Gameplay. Aurion isn't what I would call pick up and play. There is a learning curve, and for me, it was a bit steep. Maybe that's because I went into this engagement somewhat ignorant. I didn't even know Aurion was an RPG. I thought it was more action-adventure, so understanding and mastering these mechanics threw me off at first. The game teaches you that Aurion means collected energy, kinda like chi. Chi is exaggerated in games like Street Fighter, where your character uses his internal strength to unleash things like fireballs from the palms of their hands and so on. Well, I'm gathering that what chi is to other cultures is what Aurion is to some African cultures. In the world of Aurion, they use an inner force called legacy, along with their regular physical abilities. These legacy abilities vary between honor, anger, rage, and so on, and are unlocked as you progress through Aurionic awakenings. And utilizing these abilities, combining them through battles, require a level of deep strategy. But once you've spent the time to figure this out, it'll all feel like second nature moving forward. It's just the initial figuring out process that can seem a bit daunting. When you see combos being executed, they may look fluid and seamless, but the actual execution is a bit more complicated than you might think. You fight alongside your wife as well, who starts off with passive abilities like healing, but later down the line, while still acting as support, she starts shooting fireballs and such as well. The overall development process is quite deep and engaging. You both grow stronger exponentially as the game progresses in true RPG fashion. Another nod to the in-game items. As usual, in an RPG, you're able to either find items throughout the world concealed in these things called clues, which serve an even greater purpose, as you will soon find out. You're able to use them for teleportation, finding useful items, even making your own recordings. This brings a Wakanda vibe to the game, where magic and fantasy meets technology. The items used though, I love it. There are things like ginger roots, sugar canes, cassava, guava leaves, real authentic African foods. The boss fights were definitely made for people like me. I hate boss fights generally. I find them quite annoying. This is one of the reasons I like games like COD. No boss fights, but they were handled well here. They weren't overwhelming and they didn't follow the usual hardest pattern like most games. You may fight a somewhat challenging boss now, but later you meet up on a pushover. And not all situations are settled with violence either. There will be many points in game where in order to progress, complete a task, all you need to do is use your people skills. Now this isn't a fluff piece. I'm not some guy who decided that, hey, I found a pretty decent African-based game made by Africans, so I'm going to sing its praises all the live long day based on that alone. Aurion actually has more shortcomings than characters running sideways and no voice acting. The loading times are atrocious. I mean immersion-breaking atrocious. Between each area, there is a loading time. Like old school Resident Evil loading times. Only, we aren't treated to doors and steps while we wait. Just a black screen with a loading symbol in the lower right. These also happen before and after fights. It gets ridiculous fast. They were really, really bad. Doing simple things like climbing up a wall was also an unnecessary production. The world map felt awkward to navigate at times, and it seemed like the devs just threw in some busy work, like when enemies would make a blood pact to form barriers, and you had to take out each of them in order to progress. This is also a very linear experience, and I'm only saying this in an effort to be objective, as this really didn't bother me. But I do understand open world games are the craze, so I'm just putting that out there so you can make a more informed decision should you be considering getting this. There also seems to be very limited consequences for a lot of your choices. Sometimes you may save someone you didn't have to, and it is acknowledged, but then sometimes you're given the choice to answer questions using that Mass Effect multiple choice style. But many times, if you gave a wrong answer and got unfavorable results, you only needed to go back to the same person and choose another option, and it would be like they had Alzheimer's. But that being said, there's no love lost. Aurion delivers a powerful experience and manages to evoke feelings I never knew possible through a video game. It addresses mature, real-world subject matters without being an M-rated game. It pulls you in and compels you to care about the characters. Not just the main characters, but even the by-the-way characters you come across on your journey. I found myself deeply bothered, concerned, interested in these make-believe personas. And to that I say, Cairo Games, job well done. You guys have created an indie masterpiece, and I can only hope you find it in yourselves to create more. An Aurion Part 2, new IPs. Just keep pushing forward. Keep creating. Now would also be a great time to release this on the Switch. Food for thought. AAA games are all well and good, but many times, if you'd like a truly unique experience, one off the beaten path, then the indie scene is where you want to be. Show your support for independent game developers. Most if not all indie games are priced relatively low, some are even free with the option to donate, so there's really no reason to pass. Thank you for watching. If you like my content, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. If I pissed you off, then we all know where to find the various hate buttons, don't we? Either way, I won't hold it against you. Our game is never over.